Good morning, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. It is Saturday, November 9th, and this is the Daily Brief. So there's 1,660 Russian casualties day over day, 5 tanks, 36 armored combat fighting vehicles, 23 artillery systems, 66 vehicles and fuel tanks. The 1,660 is reasonably high even for the last few weeks. And you'll see why it's high in just a moment, because I'm going to show you every place where the Russians are assaulting, and it's the Russians really pushing the assaults while the Ukrainians are on the defensive. Okay, this is Andrew Perpetua's list, and it's about maybe 2.5 to 1, something along those lines of Russian losses. I know some people say, well, why don't you go into it? If you want to see a breakdown about it, go over to ATP Geopolitics. Johnny Pierce does a good job generally unpacking what this means. I just give a high overview when I do this. Andrew Perpetua is the guy who does this list every day, and good on him, because that's a lot of work to tabulate this. But he said this, and I thought this was really interesting, and it's worth listening to. The call for long-range strikes into Russia is the same level of BS as the call for Ukraine has to attack somewhere, if people were screaming in 2023. As in, it shifts the blame and focus away from what actually matters. Now, he's right, and he's kind of a little off, but he gets back to being right in just a little bit. It both makes people feel that they can win the war with some low-level, quick magic bullet, and also that the magic bullet is somehow someone else's problem and their fault hasn't happened yet. It's a nonsense position that provides no help to anyone and wastes time. So the not quite right is that, no, it does have an effect, and he does say that it does actually have an effect, but crying about it's not going to get you anywhere. Striking various targets has value. Crying about it constantly has no value. Striking those targets will not meaningfully change much. No, you cannot stop Russia's air force with a handful of missiles. No, you cannot destroy all their ammo. You can deal some damage, but not enough. But being able to do that damage to strike their ammo, being able to push their air force back, will have a positive effect on what's happening to Kharkiv, for example, with the glide bombs and that sort of thing. Eventually, Ukraine will push out their own indigenous long-range weapons to strike those targets on their own, and maybe in quantities that can make a difference. Yes, yes, yes. I've been saying this for months. As soon as Ukraine, because the Biden administration doesn't allow it, as soon as Ukraine has the weapons, homegrown weapons that they can then use to push back, it will have that effect. And if countries really want to help Ukraine strike those targets, instead of handing Ukraine a dozen missiles, they should hand Ukraine the raw materials, components, and money necessary to make indigenous weapons. And they are working with these companies in order to start to do this. My guess is it's going to be about 6 months from now by the time that they actually have those weapons to be able to do that. Once they have those weapons, then the issue is the money to finance to create more of them, rather than to buy the weapons from elsewhere. But that is what they need, clearly. In the short term, it would be great if they had it, but they're not getting it. And if Biden was going to allow it, he would have allowed it by now. The election came and went last Tuesday. Today is Saturday. There's no reason that you wouldn't lift the restrictions unless you're just not going to. Okay. Russia launched 51 Shahed drones, of which 50 were taken out, 32 by regular air defense, 18 by electronic warfare. Putin's now bombing the most beautiful landmarks in Kharkiv. He knows he'll never conquer a city of people who refuse to be slaves, and so now he seeks to destroy it. I think that's probably what's happening. He's trying to just wipe the city off the map. And it's going to take a while. This morning when I woke up and the first thing I did was, this is pretty pathetic, but I grabbed my phone and started looking through news, and I saw this building, and I thought, oh, I'm in the wrong place, because I thought this was the school in Odessa yesterday. It was dark, in my defense. It's not quite like it, but it looks like the school in Odessa yesterday that I showed. And I thought, oh, I'm in the wrong place. And then I realized, oh, crap, this is another one. And this is what the war is like. It's just so sad. This is what a school in Ukrainian town of Krasnopillia, Sumy region looks like after the 3 airstrikes. Classroom, a school, gym, and nearby playground were damaged. Overall, at least 10 schools in this northern region have been destroyed. And I thought I was talking about the one in Odessa yesterday, just because like my eyes were still foggy from waking up. I just first thing rolled over, grabbed my phone, and started looking for news. Wow, that's more of a commentary on my sad existence than anything else. A downed Russian drone equipped with thermobaric warhead. This is enough to destroy an apartment building. Russians are sending about 100 a day into the people of Ukraine. Well, not necessarily 100. Now, so this is what's interesting. So this is the stuff, the thermobaric stuff. But what's interesting is that the Russians at one point had enough shaheds to make about 16 a day. So anything less than that, I was thinking, oh, they're saving up for a rainy day. And anything more than that, I'm thinking, okay, they can only make so much. But they seem to have come across a new supply or a new way to manufacture far more than 16 a day, because they've been hitting with much more than that. And they would have run out of their reserves by now if they're still at 16 a day in capacity. Last night, Tula region, the chemical plant was allegedly attacked by Ukrainian drones this time. The company produces ammunition, gunpowder, as well as polymers, paints and varnishes, and composite materials for the military complex of Russia. Here's a little bit more about this. The plant, part of the Rostec Corporation, supplies ammunition, gunpowder, and materials for Russia's military-industrial complex. Shifting over to the Frontline report, let's look at this. Frontline: Ukrainian combined arms operation retakes northern Druzhba. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. And then Ukrainian forces recently advanced in Novo-Ivanovoka, Kursk Oblast. And meanwhile, Russian forces advanced south of Chasiv Yar, southeast of Kharkiv, and north of Vuhledar. It's very skewed heavily in terms of Russian attacks, very little in terms of Ukrainian offensives. And here's what I mean. General Staff reported 171 combat clashes yesterday. And here's where. On the Pokrovsk axis, Ukrainian defenders stopped 36 assaults. On the Kharkiv axis, defense forces repelled 40 Russian attacks. On the Kharkiv axis, using bomber aircraft, the enemy stormed 5 times the positions of the AFU in the areas around Vovchansk. In the Kupiansk axis, 14 attacks of the invaders took place during the day. On the Lyman axis, the enemy attacked 12 times. On the Seversk axis, Ukrainian defenders repelled 5 assaults. Kramatorsk axis, the occupiers attacked once. On the Tourist axis, the enemy, actively using aviation, made 10 attacks. And so on and so forth, right? It just goes on and on about Russian attacks, because now that's what leads to the 1660 in Russian casualties, because the Russians are just on the attack. Poroshenko urges authorities to immediately build fortifications on critical front lines. So he has bought 12, with his own money, bought 12 new excavators for the armed forces of Ukraine, the cost of about $1 million. He urged the authorities to build fortifications on the administrative border of Donetsk, in Kharkiv, Sumy, Zaporizhia regions, as well as reminded of the need to have a second and third defense line. So he's doing something positive, but he also was reaching out to Trump, which could be doing something positive. He also could be Zelensky's competition in a future presidential race. And so I'm not sure if he's doing that politically or if he's just being patriotic. I can't really tell. And if you know, put it in the comments below. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Ukraine received about $1.37 billion as a grant from the World Bank. This is a peace initiative. It is not going to security and defense. It's going to other financial support for budgets and humanitarian needs. And so good on the World Bank. Michael McFall put, today is still a good day to do this. And he's talking about on the 6th, he put out a tweet that said, today would be a good day for Biden to lift restrictions on the use of weapons by Ukraine in Russia. Now, Putin's not going to use a nuclear weapon 2 months before Trump comes to office. There's no way. And so he says, today is still a good day to do this, but Biden, I don't think, is going to do it. If he was going to do it, he would have done it by now. Okay, abandoned by the troops. tik-tok armored car STS-3 Ahkmut in the Kursk region, fully upgraded with gunner protection, 14.5 millimeter KPVT inside, as well as additional side protection and electronic warfare system. Other units can only dream of this, chipping in for electronic warfare, driving loaves of bread, and these can afford everything. The most important thing is to have time to record a TikTok video, though, and it's sad that it's abandoned because no more TikTok videos with this. So, okay. All right. I'm fascinated by drones. Here is a little bit more about how drones are useful on the front line. This is Radio Free Europe. Flying at night to avoid detection, drones are often the only way to get food and supplies to frontline Ukrainian troops. So it's a matter of life and death because of the intensity of the fighting. These guys are using up all their resources, water, food, ammunition. And so a drone is often the only way to get these supplies in. And so our provisions have a direct impact on their fighting ability and their readiness, and we're like guardian angels above them. So they fly this in at night. They say they can fly in 15 kilograms, which is about 33 pounds with each flight in. So they have to be judicious about what they use. Now, drones also guide artillery, and that's really important because the artillery, the Russian artillery outmatches Ukrainian artillery in most places, and the ratio has been as high as 10, 15 to 1, something along those lines. And so having drones up in the air to guide, to precisely know where to target, has narrowed that advantage. If it was 10 to 1, maybe it feels more like 3 or 5 to 1 because you can precisely pinpoint where your artillery is going. They also have new drone nets, these little drone net launchers, and it looks something like this. This is pretty awesome to watch. Ukrainian drones equipped with net shooter downs a Russian quadcopter. Here he is, he's getting ready, looking for and launches the net. Boom. There you go. It's pretty interesting to watch. All right, my friends. I know that after the election, a lot of people dropped out. We talked about that in this video here where I was saying, hey, something strange is happening on YouTube. And it wasn't just YouTube, it was YouTube, Twitter. And yes, certainly some bots have left. I think it's more that some people, particularly on the left, felt terrible after the election. So this post said, fellas, who's still here after the election? Let's rally the troops. Keep going. Now, sometimes the days are just hard, but you just got to keep going forward. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person who still cares about Ukraine.